Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action!
Hi y'all, this is Jerry Williams, aka TV Jerry. Bonjour mes amis. That little French accent is in honor of this week's show. 2 weeks ago, I was joined by Dr. Peter Kirkpatrick and his wife, Dr. Françoise Reveau Kirkpatrick, to talk about their creation of the French Film Festival, which ran in Richmond from 1993 to 2022. It was the largest French movie and culture showcase held outside of France, with more than 900 guest directors, screenwriters, actors, cinematographers, composers, and more. This week, we'll talk about the changes, challenges, and the ultimate closing of the festival.
Sifter Review of the Week.
The Better Sister on Prime Video. As this series starts, a woman, Jessica Biel, finds her husband, Corey Stoll, murdered in their home. Soon after, her somewhat estranged sister, Elizabeth Banks, shows up. While they try to piece together the truth behind the crime, they struggle to piece their relationship back together. This involves way too much sister-centric dialogue to the point of boredom frustration. The murder case is moderately interesting with some mild surprises, but the continual sideline of the familial conflict always holds sway. The performances are fine, with Banks enjoying her bad girl character. This is yet another series that might have been a tight, tense 4-part thriller, but the wasted subplots and endless talk doom this series to mediocrity, with 9 one-hour episodes. I gave The Better Sister 2 out of 5 stars. Now, let's continue my interview about the French Film Festival with Drs. Peter Kirkpatrick and Françoise Reveau Kirkpatrick. The festival went on for so long. How did it change from the beginning until the later years? Were the things added, or I know you had the people coming in pretty early, obviously the filmmakers and the other people. Were there other things that changed that you saw evolve over the years?
Yeah, very much so. And so each year we would grow the number of films, but also we started doing, I think this started with like the 5th or 6th festival, we started doing master classes where we'd bring in some of the filmmakers even like 4 or 5 days earlier. 3 festival years, we did actually symposiums, 3 full days of just learning about filmmaking, about the craft of filmmaking from these experts. And then we would do the festival, for the 4 days of the festival. So the festival just ended up being these events that would go, virtually nonstop. After the midnight film, we'd leave the bird around 2 a.m, and then we'd be back for short films on Saturday and Sunday morning, at 8 o'clock.
And also there were an exchange of students. We had students from La Fémis, which is a very famous film school in Paris. And they would be working with students in a film program, VCU. Those students, when they leave La Fémis, when they leave the school, they have to write a thesis. And we would translate their thesis with my students in English so they could really communicate with them. And then those students would present their thesis and the film accompanying their thesis during a masterclass also. Yeah, we did that.
Now, I read one place, I know you brought in the filmmakers, that you brought in projectionists from France too to assure the quality?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really, there's also other individuals that had this tremendous impact. And one in particular is Pierre-William Glenn, a cinematographer.
Footnote.
Pierre-William Glenn was a French cinematographer and film director with more than 70 films, including shooting Truffaut's classic Day for Night and Sam Fuller's last film, Street of No Return.
And the year we invited him, he was amazed by the Bird Theater. And then he went into a projection booth that he just loved also up in the Bird Theater. It had, 2 35mm projectors. They had one of the first prototype digital projectors. And Pierre-William Glenn said, I'm the president of, in addition to being a teacher at the FEMI's film school and a filmmaker, he says, I'm the president of the High Commission on Cinema. And the High Commission on Cinema is actually a guild that brings up everyone else, all these artist technicians that make films. And one of the groups within that are projectionists. That group is in charge of all the projections at the Cannes Film Festival.
Wow.
Not only the 20-some films in competition, but the other 3,000 films that are shown at the marketplace at Cannes. And so Pierre Williams said, we're going to have the technicians that we have at the Cannes Film Festival. We're going to bring over those specialists before your festival. They're going to tweak the Bird Theater and make sure we show the films in the best lighting and sound conditions possible. And for our team in France, this will be kind of like a prep to get them, warmed up for what they're going to have to do in the Cannes Film Festival.
Right.
And that truly was a godsend for us, because we would be confirmed and saying that we'll be at the Bird Theater beside these directors and filmmakers and know that the film's going to be shown as it should be. And thanks to Pierre-Wayne Glenn and his team with Alan Bess and Mariam Gedjali, who was also one of our interns that ended up working. We had a lot of festival interns that ended up working in the film industry after our festival. So those pivotal points of Richard Hazelwood, Pierre-William Glenn, we mentioned Terry Lhermitte, one of the first actors, but also so many in the delegation. I mean, when you take the history of the festival, it was close to 1,000 people that we brought over from France. Starting about the sixth, seventh festival, it turned out that, instead of us knocking on doors all the time, we would have a much easier time because the reputation of the festival was growing. I mean, some directors would even invite us to their shoots, and we
Cool.
go and see films being made. They were so excited about having the world premiere at our festival of their upcoming film. So
Now, you mentioned the projection booth, and I know up there they also, one of the cool things about the Bird is it has the old glass projector to have glass slides they can project. And then I remember in 2017, one of the most memorable shows I saw was when you had the Magic Lantern show, and they brought in slides from the 17th century and showed that. That was really memorable for me. What are some of the other more interesting, unusual, or challenging guests or events that happened? Like Richard's great stories. You got any more like those? I'm sure you do.
Well, you just mentioned one. I mean, that Magic Lantern show, that was thanks to Laurent Manoni of the Cinémathèque Française and Laura Parchemenko. That, for everyone to really understand how that and who Laurent is at the Cinémathèque Française, people like Stone, Scorsese, when they hop off a plane in Paris, one of the first places they go to is actually Laura Manoni's office at the Cinémathèque Française to see all the, the first projectors used by Georges Méliès or by the Lumière brothers. And then the latest laser things, they're all in his office. He's in charge of all this. And he has all these magic lanterns. And he did a couple shows in Europe with them, but he had come to our festival because he would also be part of the project that we would have of restoring silent films from early cinema in France and showing them in the Bird with the organ. And so he said, that we let us think about doing the Magic Lantern show at the Bird. And that was a whole saga. It took us 2.5 years to get the funding for that, to get the permission from the Minister of French Culture in order to have these things leave Europe and come here in a plane that Laurent was in. But the insurance policy for that, it also took us 1.5 years just to get the insurance to cover it.
Wow.
So the fact that we did that, we even said, like, well, once they're here, let's get it shown at the MoMA or in DC or in other things and have it go elsewhere. But we couldn't find people who were interested in it or that knew about Magic Lanterns. So we did it. It was a unique thing. And Laura and Laurent Manoni, they ended up telling us, they said, like, we've shown this in Europe and in France and a couple small venues, but he says this will never be repeated. And one of the reasons why it was so interesting is because the general manager of the Bird Theater, Todd Chavez, not only allowed us, but also helped us implement of having a stage built up in the middle of the seats
remember.
these magic lanterns can be on. But Todd, with logistically, we had to say, okay, we're showing films. We're going to have a reception. Can this stage be rebuilt in time for during the reception when people come back from the reception that we can have the showing? That whole festival, because we had a symposium for 3 days beforehand. We also had the founding member of the rock group Police, not Sting, but a guy named Henry Padovani, who's from Corsica. There was a documentary film that we showed about him that had Sting in it and everything. But what we decided to do is, after that film about Henri Padovani and the foundation of the Police and also the whole thing, we had him play live on the stage of the Bird after his film. And that was really touching because previously before that, he had played with Sting in Paris at the reopening of the Bataclan Club where the terrorist attacks had happened a couple of years before. And so that we had a special concert. We had the Magic Lanterns. And then on Sunday, we had Philippe Toriton on stage interpreting these poetic texts of Alain Leprest, a songwriter and a poet in France.
Because the poems were in French, we had to translate them and to have
Surtitles.
subtitles.
Yeah. We took that on the road. We had
Yeah.
them do the performance also in DC and then up off Broadway in New York.
Y'all received two special decorations, and let me see if my high school French still works. First was the L'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres, and Société des Auteurs et Compositeurs Dramatiques. It's been since high school. That was 50 years ago. What did those mean, and what were those like to receive those awards? I assume you went to France for those.
It was very touching to receive those because a lot of the filmmakers in France, but also other, from Clint Eastwood and other people that go to France, and they ended up receiving that medal as well. And for us to have been, awarded that by the French government, actually the French ambassador came to the festival in order to pin those medals on us on stage.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, and when he did that, he made some interesting comments and saying that also creating a cultural event like the festival is an art form in itself. So that was a very special moment. And the other award that you mentioned, that is actually by the Writers Guild in France, and it's called the Beaumarchais Medal.
That would have been much easier for me to pronounce. I wish I'd known that.
That's their highest award that the Writers Guild in France gives, and they invited us to a ceremony at the Writers Guild in France. It was a beautiful Hôtel Particulier. At that ceremony, there were artists and so many people had been to our festival. It's always nice being recognized by the profession like that. But one of the things we also, Jerry, is just it happened every year, is running into so many people that we didn't know that would stop us and say like, "Oh, I can't wait. What are the dates for next year's festival?" It was always like a little prize in itself that we ended up seeing how many people we ended up touching through this festival, people we didn't know. Several couples ended up getting married because they had either met at our festival, or one couple, I remember one evening in the Bird Theater, I was just asking people where they'd come from. And there was this couple that stood up and they said they came from Australia just for the festival.
Wow.
They weren't for vacation. They just come to the festival, and they were saying, yeah, because, this is a festival where the actors and directors, they're not hidden off in hotels and things like that. They stay in Carytown. You can talk with them afterwards. And it just ended up touching so many students, but so many other people we just didn't know.
Peter just met a young woman who is doing her master's degree now.
Yeah.
And she has been at the festival since she was 10 years old.
9 years old.
9 years
9 years old. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And, and we didn't know her. She came to our house the other day with a friend of hers, and she ended up indicating that the festival was part of her life from 9 years old. It's made decisions about, what she wanted to study. It's also made decisions like a lot of students would discover in grade school or high school, and they would decide to go to U of R or VCU because of the French Film Festival. And we ended up having a lot of majors that ended up coming to our schools because of it. As a professor, that was the extra prize and bonus of this,
Yeah. You mentioned people come to your house. When you're at home, do y'all speak English or French?
Yeah, we speak mostly French, but, yeah.
English when you're angry and French when you're in love?
No, it's always better to cuss in French. It feels, I don't know, it's like Mark Twain, man. He's just like Tom Sawyer in the attic. There's something about French cuss words that just feel better.
Right. Then there came COVID.
Right.
So there was no 2020.
Yeah.
2021, I remember trying to do it kind of like everybody else, long distance, which is never easy or fun. And then 2022 was the last year.
Yes.
There was a very simple explanation. I'll quote, "It has truly been an honor to bring more than 1,000 directors, screenwriters, cinematographers, composers, editors, producers, and other artist technicians to Richmond for the public, especially for our students since 1993. That was the final statement. Was there any reason other than the both of you retired that you decided, let's just stop?
Well, I think, one, COVID, with the quarantine, I think we also realized just how much the festival truly took. For example, we just, for years, we just wouldn't sleep much. And, when COVID happened, things started stopping. We realized that, my goodness, but in addition to that, COVID, and it still has, Jerry, I think you've probably felt this too, is that COVID has really made things tough for the cinema industry.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone installed wonderful things in their houses to see things, but that magic of being in one place with 1,000 plus people and having that cinematic experience in that sense, that's really something that's hard to find anymore. I mean, it's happening, tonight in the Lumiere Palace in Cannes, but it's really hard to have that type of exchange. And when you see, in fact, I think it was yesterday, we drove by the Bowtie cinemas, and we were shocked because on the marquee are no longer the names of the films.
Right, right.
It's marked that it's a bowling alley and stuff like that. And so that ended up combined with everything because of COVID, funding sources and things that were changing. 80+% of our budget was the public, which was a healthy thing.
That's
We
great.
weren't
Yeah.
dependent upon, a grant or something like that. We had sponsors we were very proud of from the French film industry. And during COVID, rightfully so, those writers guilds, directors guilds, music guilds, and also the artist technician guild, all of them said that, well, cinema's being shutting down because of COVID. We need to move the funding that we used to give to festivals and things like that to help the families of these artists.
Right,
And
right.
we were very supportive of that. That ended up, it started to come back, but not in the way it was beforehand because of a lot of other. I mean, you saw it in film schools, you see it in different festivals that are now created. There's TV series festivals, there's TV series departments in film schools. There's been a gradual, I mean, it's all interesting because it's all visual art.
Storytelling, yeah.
But as far as cinema as itself, we still are concerned about something like the Bird Theater, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we are so lucky. In fact, one of the French directors, Jean Achache, who came to our festival, out of the few cinema palaces like that still exist in the US, he picked the Bird Theater to make a documentary about, which is part of a collection in France of the few cinema palaces in the world that exist. And he made it on the Bird Theater. And it's true, we're so fortunate to have a theater that has still its organ, to have a balcony that's still there that wasn't cut off to make a second screening room.
And new seats now.
And yeah, and so the new seats coming in, having that as a venue where you would have, films programmed for people to have a true cinematic experience. I think we're so fortunate for that. Every time we drive by the Bird Theater, I know they're trying to do something with the marquee and things like that. We're always thinking like Richmond has to preserve this. And if it's not individual contributors that give money for the new seats and other things, then, we've said it before, then it should be the responsibility of whether it's the universities, Virginia Commonwealth University, University of Richmond, or some of the museums here in Richmond, to get together those individuals to make sure that that is always there, to make sure that this art form called cinema always has a true place, because a lot of directors don't think about making films that you can watch on your watch or
Right,
on
right.
iPad.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they're still
Yeah.
thinking about the big screen. In fact, we went to the Bowtie a couple weeks ago. There was a film, an independent film called The Ballad of Wallace Island. I don't
Great little movie. Yeah, it was delightful.
Yeah.
Footnote.
The movie was The Ballad of Wallace Island, and I'll post my review of it on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
And seeing that on the screen, because the expressions of the actors, their tics and their eye movements, that gets lost on a small screen. To see
Yeah,
that
yeah.
film on a big screen, that's what storytelling by images is all about.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that can continue.
Now, let me just mention that Movie Land. I was actually there yesterday, too. I went to see Mission Impossible on their new big giant BTX screen, which is a big curved screen with Dolby Atmos, which is speakers literally over your head, everywhere around you. So they are working. They do have the bowling, and they are going to have the bowling and the game center, because that's what apparently the trend is now, to have something for everybody to do. But they do have those wonderful experiences coming in their new theater. So that is good to have, that they are investing in theatrical there at Movie Land.
Yeah, that is important because, technology, it changes so quickly. To stay on the cutting edge like Bowtie's doing by having that venue, it's true. Technology, it changes the way people are making films, and it's changed the way we experience and see the films. And, you have to take your hat off to Bowtie for doing that.
Yeah.
I wanted also to say that when we decided that we would stop the festival, it was also the time where we realized that people like Richard Hazelwood, our interns, we have had French interns to help us, and Todd Chavez wouldn't be there anymore, and that was part of our team. And without them, and everything else that Peter mentioned, there was not, it would not be impossible.
There was no discussion of letting VCU or University of Richmond just pick it up on their own?
There's no funding for it. I mean, University of Richmond and VCU, I mean, the office space they gave us for the festivals for our interns, we appreciated that. But and the funding of it, there was a contribution by each university. I think it was like $10,000 each at one time.
They helped for the symposiums.
And they helped for the symposiums.
University of Richmond helped for the symposiums.
Yeah, there was.
But otherwise, it was not enough, 10,000.
And there was no salary, right? I mean, we didn't have a salary from the festival. Yeah.
The French students didn't either.
Yeah, our French interns, they would come over, be part of their academic program to get credit for their master's degree back in France. But, every now and then we would have an unbelievable intern like Richard Hazelwood, and we would say, like, that would be the future, right, of trying to keep this for after us. But there was just never enough funding to really have a permanent salary for even an assistant.
So what would you say the legacy that two of you have left with the French Film Festival?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm laughing because for the last couple of days here, we've been moving the archives of the French Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness. There are 8 garages, 10 by 10 garages that have been packed with 30 plus years of French Film Festival archives. So the legacy, we're dealing with the physical part of it right now. But I think the legacy is truly, as Richard indicated, is the impact that we had on so many people. For us, that's what the legacy is about. The students that touch. I mean, I remember there were a lot of films we would pick that didn't have subtitles. And so, the production agencies in France were thinking like, I never thought this would, be something for the Anglophone market and stuff like that. And so luckily with our partnerships, we had the biggest post-production studio in Europe. That director, Denis Auboyer, and his wife, Denise Auboyer, they were the ones that invented laser subtitling, actually. So they gave us their proprietary software, and we created classes on subtitling, and we subtitled a lot of films with our undergraduate or graduate students. So those type of experiences of seeing how they take that type of knowledge of either subtitling or either working with the festival and going into the industry, and even those that didn't go into the industry afterwards. I think it was a learning experience where they realized what it takes to do a cultural event for a nonprofit. And some of them just really blossomed and grew and wanted to do that as a career. Others looked at us saying that we had a great time, but this is nuts. There's no money involved in this.
Yeah.
So, and then that's a good experience for them as well. In fact, some of them are working at the Cannes Film Festival right now.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Great. So as you know, you said you've heard some of the shows before. The last question I always like to ask is, what are you watching? Whether it's, you just said Wild Asylum, which was a great little movie, but are y'all going to movies? You watching something streaming? What are you watching?
No, we go to the movies. We love movies. In fact, after you've screened so many films trying to prepare for a festival, it's hard for us to go to a cinema without staying for seeing 2 or 3 films. Right? So we love to go to cinemas, and as we mentioned, film, The Ballad of Wallace Island.
Right.
We liked that one so much that we were up in Concord, Massachusetts, and in Lexington, Massachusetts had a little theater, and Francois saw it was playing again, and we saw it again.
Cool and Foil, my goodness.
Yeah, that's been keeping us. Also, we're on the board of the Pocahontas Reframe Film Festival. So Brad sends us screeners to give him input about, what we think should be next year's programming. So we see a lot of Native American and First Nation films.
So I am also a member of the
Academy.
The Academy, which is decided the films which will be in competition for the Caesars.
Footnote.
The Caesars are France's version of the Oscars.
Francoise is a member, and there are all of the hundreds and hundreds of films that we watch throughout the year, French films, and then that she votes on, for the first round, and then the final round for the Caesar Awards. And so, in fact, in January, we were at a Caesar Award ceremony for the technician. That special ceremony of the Caesars honored Pierre William Glenn, who would come every year with his team and tweak the Bird Theater, and who was also became a dear friend of ours, and also the president after Claude Miller passed away. He became the president of our festival. And yeah.
So you haven't watched Étoile?
No, we haven't seen it yet.
Interesting series. It's by the people who did Mrs. Maisel.
Yes.
As you know, it's half in France and half in England. And it's interesting to see. And of course, you won't have to read the subtitles, but it does have lots of French subtitles. And of course, because it's real French, they talk really fast. So Mark, my husband, was like, I can't read. They're going too fast here with these titles. But it was great. But I just have to say, you know, from all those years and for all those people, thank you so much. The French Film Festival was certainly a unique cultural event, not only in Richmond, but in the world. And you are both to be lauded for your dedication for all those years.
Well, thank you, Jerry, and thank you for all you do in order to keep cinema active and keep the buzz here in Richmond, for your recommendations about what to see and make sure not to miss. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was Peter Kirkpatrick and his wife, Francois Revaux Kirkpatrick, founders of the French Film Festival, which ran in Richmond from 1993 to 2022. I have a link to the festival webpage if you want to read more about it, as well as my review of Wallace Island, now streaming on Peacock. They'll be on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
The Life of Chuck. Even though the director is known for horror, and Stephen King certainly has that rep, this film from them has three actors, Tom Hiddleston, Jacob Tremblay, and Benjamin Pajak, as they portray the same man and examine his impact on the world around him. Materialists. Celine Song, who directed the Oscar winner Past Lives, is back with this rom-com about a New York City matchmaker, Dakota Johnson, who finds herself torn between the perfect match, Pedro Pascal, and her imperfect ex, Chris Evans. How to Train Your Dragon. DreamWorks' first entry into live-action remakes follows the young Viking boy who shirks tradition to befriend a dragon. Gerard Butler reprises his role. The Unholy Trinity. Buried secrets of 1870s Montana spark violence when a young man returns to claim his legacy and is caught between a sheriff determined to maintain order and a mysterious stranger, with Samuel L. Jackson, Pierce Brosnan, and two of his real-life sons.
TV and streaming.
Cleaner on Max. A window cleaner becomes an unexpected hero in a hostage crisis. Undercover on Prime. Bryce Dallas Howard, Orlando Bloom, and Nick Mohammed play three improv actors who are asked by the police to go undercover in London's criminal underworld. Echo Valley on Apple. Sydney Sweeney plays the daughter who shows up at her mother's door covered in blood. Mom is Julianne Moore, and the showrunner is Brad Inglesby, who most recently is known for Mayor of Easttown, also with Kyle MacLachlan and Fiona Shaw. Sally on Disney and Hulu. Sally Ride's groundbreaking journey as the first American woman in space concealed a deeply personal story. Her life partner, Tam O'Shaughnessy, unveils their covert 27-year romance and its accompanying sacrifices. The Waterfront on Netflix. From Kevin Williamson, the creator of Dawson's Creek and Scream, comes this series set in his home state of North Carolina, where it involves a prominent family that falls on hard times. Fubar on Netflix. Arnold Schwarzenegger returns as a CIA agent who can't seem to retire, with Carrie Ann Moss. Next week, we'll meet another team, a writer and director who created a thriller called The Man in the White Van, and we'll find out their Richmond connection. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sister, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.